Tommy the executioner pressed his gun against Bumpy Johnson's head and smiled. Dutch sends his regard. But what Dutch didn't know was that Bumpy had been planning this moment for weeks. February 14th, 1933. Valentine's Day Massacre, Harlem edition. But this time, the script was flipped. Dutch Schultz controlled everything in New York. Bootlegging, numbers, protection. If money changed hands, Dutch got his cut. Everyone feared him. Everyone except one man, Bumpy Johnson. The war started over territory. Dutch wanted Harlem's numbers racket, pure gold flowing through the neighborhood daily. But Harlem already had a king, Madame Stephanie Street Claire, and her enforcer, Bumpy Johnson. When Dutch's men came to negotiate, Madame Street Claire told them to get out. When they threatened her, Bumpy Johnson made 3 of them disappear. Not killed, disappeared. That's when Dutch Schultz decided Bumpy Johnson had to die. Not just die, be made an example of. Dutch sent his best. Tommy the Executioner, Vento, Marty Icepick, Delaney, Big Jim Colosimo, Fast Eddie Romano. 8 more killers whose names even police didn't know. 12 men total. Their plan was simple. Corner Bumpy alone, make him beg, then execute him publicly. Send Harlem a message. February 14th, 4:30 a.m. The Cotton Club basement, not the famous downtown joint, but the real Cotton Club, where Harlem's players gambled and settled scores. Dark, isolated, 1 exit. Perfect place for execution. But Bumpy Johnson had been expecting them. Bumpy was 27, but he'd spent 8 years learning hard lessons. Born in South Carolina, raised on Harlem streets, educated in Sing Sing, where he discovered his greatest weapon, his mind. While other convicts lifted weights, Bumpy read Shakespeare and Machiavelli. He studied chess until he could play blindfolded. When Madame Street Claire made him her enforcer, she taught him violence is easy. Any fool can pull a trigger, but respect, that requires intelligence. By 1932, Bumpy Johnson was the most respected man in Harlem. When landlords tried evicting black families, Bumpy paid their rent. When corrupt cops shook down black businesses, those cops got transferred. When outside gangs tried muscling in, they found themselves outmatched by superior strategy. What Dutch didn't know was that Bumpy had been 3 steps ahead from the beginning. Marcus Williams, the light-skinned runner who could pass for white, fed Dutch's organization information, but Marcus worked for Bumpy. Charlie Torino, Dutch's lieutenant drowning in gambling debts, had been quietly compromised when Bumpy paid those debts. Even Dixie Davis, Dutch's lawyer, had been neutralized through evidence of tax evasion. Bumpy knew everything. Location, timing, participants, method. He could have avoided the trap entirely. Instead, he chose to walk into that basement alone because he wanted to send a message that would end this war permanently. At 4:32 a.m., Bumpy descended those stairs wearing his best charcoal gray suit. No tie, he never wore ties, said they gave opponents something to grab. His shoes were mirror polished. If he was going to die, he'd die looking like a king. But death wasn't on his agenda. Education was. The basement was dark except for one hanging bulb. 12 men emerged from shadows, guns drawn. They'd positioned themselves strategically. Tommy center, Marty right, Big Jim blocking stairs. 9 more in a perfect circle of death. Tommy, the executioner, stepped forward, confident from 16 previous kills. Dutch sends his regards. Bumpy stood calm, hands at his side. He looked around, counting. That all he sent? The question caught Tommy off guard. This wasn't fear. This was genuine curiosity. 12's enough for one uppity nigger, Big Jim growled. You sure about that? Bumpy asked. 5 seconds to beg, Tommy said, raising his gun to Bumpy's head. Bumpy tilted his head, studying Tommy like a chess master. You're making a mistake. What mistake? You're about to be dead. The mistake, Bumpy said slowly, is thinking I came here alone. 12 guns stayed trained on him, but now there was doubt. Tommy glanced at stairs. Nothing. Marty checked shadows. Empty. You are alone, Tommy said, voice lacking confidence. You're bluffing, Fast Eddie added, gun hand trembling. Bumpy smiled for the first time, not desperate or frightened, but satisfied. Then shoot. Nobody shot, because Bumpy Johnson understood something Dutch's men didn't. Violence has rules, and whoever controls the tempo controls the outcome. They thought they controlled tempo with guns and numbers, but Bumpy understood tempo isn't about weapons, it's about fear. And the only person in that basement who wasn't afraid was Bumpy Johnson. Last chance, Tommy said, finger tightening, but confidence was gone. That's when Bumpy moved. What happened next became legend. His first target wasn't a person, it was the light. One precise punch shattered the hanging bulb, plunging the room into complete darkness. In that instant, 12 men with guns became 12 blind men shooting at shadows. First shots came wild, panic. Muzzle flashes lit the room in stroboscopic bursts, revealing chaos. Men spinning in confusion, firing at sounds that might not be there. But Bumpy knew that room perfectly. He'd gambled there dozens of times, memorized every table, chair, obstruction. In darkness, he moved like a phantom, while Dutch's men blundered like tourists. Tommy screamed orders. Stay Stay calm, watch crossfire. But panic doesn't listen to orders. One by one, you could hear them going down. Not from gunshots, though several shot each other in confusion, but from something more personal. Bumpy didn't waste bullets. He used hands, improvised weapons, their own momentum against them. A scream as someone's elbow bent wrong. Sound of skull hitting concrete. Gun clattering across floor. Another scream, cut short by chokehold. Fast Eddie fired 6 shots at what he thought was Bumpy's position. His bullets found Big Jim instead. 3 rounds center mass. Big Jim collapsed, gasping, "Why?" as blood pooled on basement floor. Marty tried reaching stairs, navigation by feel in absolute darkness. He made it halfway before something grabbed his ankle. The scream that followed echoed like banshee wail. Tommy tried rallying remaining men. Form up, back to back, but too late. In darkness, every shadow was enemy, every sound threat. The violence lasted exactly 3 minutes 17 seconds. When footsteps approached, basement door and light spilled downstairs, silence had returned. 11 men lay on concrete in various states of injury and unconsciousness. Some would never fight again. Others would never walk again. 3 were dead, not from Bumpy's hands, but from friendly fire. Only one remained conscious, Marty ice-picked Delaney, sitting against wall, with gun in shaking hand, hyperventilating from shock. His leg was broken, face bloody, but he was alive. And Bumpy Johnson was gone. Not hiding, not unconscious, completely vanished like smoke. Marty crawled upstairs on hands and knees, broken leg dragging. 26 steps taking 28 minutes. At street level, morning light broke over Harlem. Normal people heading to jobs, unaware the balance of power had just shifted permanently. Marty flagged taxi with blood-soaked money, collapsed into back seat, gave Dutch his address. The ride took 43 minutes. Time to think about explaining the unexplainable. Dutch Schultz was having breakfast when Marty stumbled into his social club at 8:17 a.m. Eggs Benedict, fresh orange juice, Colombian coffee, New York Times spread like a king surveying his kingdom. Dutch looked up, saw his lieutenant covered in blood, went still. Entire club went quiet. Where are the others? Marty opened his mouth. No words came. Marty, where are my men? Dead, Marty whispered. All of them. Newspaper crumpled in Dutch's hands. What? Dead, all 11. Tommy, Big Jim, Fast Eddie, everyone. Dutch stood slowly. 11 men dead? How many were they facing? 1 man. Silence was deafening. Everyone stared like Marty spoke ancient Greek. 1 man killed 11 of my soldiers? Not killed. Destroyed. Some shot each other in dark, but most. Marty shuddered. He fought like nothing human. Dutch's face showed disbelief, rage, calculation, finally something resembling respect. He let you live to deliver message. What message? Marty extracted single playing card with trembling hand. Ace of spades, covered in dried blood. He placed it on Dutch's breakfast table. He said, Harlem's not for sale. If you send more men, send more cards. He's collecting a deck. Dutch picked up bloody card, studied it like archaeologist examining lost artifact. Room waited for explosion, retaliation orders, unleashing full organizational power. Instead, Dutch began laughing. Genuine appreciation. Jesus Christ, he's got bigger balls than Capone. Boss, Dixie Davis ventured, we can't let this stand. If word gets out 1 nigger destroyed our crew, every punk will think they can challenge us. Dutch held up bloody ace, examining it in morning light. Dixie, you know what this represents? Disrespect? Evolution. For 20 years, I've been apex predator, but this is intelligent. So what do we do? Dutch looked around at his killers, enforcers, strategists who'd built the most powerful criminal organization in America. We do nothing. Statement shocked everyone. Nothing? Our reputation. Our reputation will be fine. Anyone smart enough to do what Bumpy Johnson did is too smart to push luck. He made his point. I'm making mine by not being stupid enough to start unwinnable war. Dutch walked to safe, opened it, placed bloody card inside next to cash and document. There's easier money than Harlem. Brooklyn Docks, Manhattan Garment District, Bronx Construction, all more profitable and less defended than one neighborhood with a king who proved he can't be intimidated. He closed safe, returned to breakfast. We're done in Harlem. Let Bumpy Johnson have his kingdom. Decision was final. Within hours, word spread that Dutch Schultz, who'd never backed down, had backed down from Harlem. Some called it wisdom, others weakness, but everyone agreed. Bumpy Johnson had accomplished the impossible. Years later, Marcus Williams, surviving witness, revealed the truth. Bumpy had 4 men upstairs for cleanup, not fighting. He walked into that basement alone, fought alone, won alone. Backup just made sure nobody escaped to tell wrong version. February 14th, 1933. 12 men walked into basement, 1 walked out. Bumpy Johnson became undisputed king of Harlem. For 35 years until 1968, Bumpy ruled through respect, not fear. The Cotton Club legend was enough to deter any challenger. That framed ace of spades hung in his office forever. Reminder that sometimes the only way to end war is fight it so decisively nobody ever wants to fight you again. The aftermath rippled rippled through New York's underworld for months. Every numbers runner, bootlegger, small-time hood who'd considered challenging Harlem suddenly reconsidered their ambition. Word spread like wildfire. Bumpy Johnson had destroyed Dutch Schultz's elite crew single-handedly, not with an army or superior firepower, but with intelligence, strategy, psychological warfare. In Brooklyn, rival families planning moves into Harlem quietly abandoned those plans. In Queens, protection rackets eyeing Harlem's territory found other neighborhoods more appealing. In the Bronx, even Dutch's remaining soldiers spoke Bumpy's name with fear and admiration. The Cotton Club massacre became more than story. It became a lesson in power mathematics. 12 armed men should defeat one unarmed man every time. But mathematics don't account for preparation, psychological advantage, terrain knowledge, and absolute fearlessness. Bumpy Johnson proved something defining his legend for 35 years. Superior strategy could overcome any disadvantage. Intelligence could triumph over brute force and fear. The most powerful weapon wasn't always a gun. Sometimes it was reputation built on RY decisive, calculated action. 10 visual prompts. Cotton Club Massacre. Prompt 1. Bumpy's calm entrance. Professional black and white 1940s photograph. Well-dressed African-American man in three-piece suit descending narrow basement stairs. Single hanging light bulb casting dramatic shadows. Confident posture despite dark, threatening atmosphere below. Prompt 2. The confrontation. High contrast black and white photograph. Bumpy Johnson standing calmly in basement center facing 12 men in suits and fedoras positioned around him. Single overhead bulb lighting. Film noir shadows. Tension in body language. Prompt 3. Tommy's threat. Black and white 1940s interior photograph. Close-up of man with gun pointed at Bumpy Johnson's head. Bumpy's face shows no fear, only cold calculation. Dramatic lighting emphasizing standoff moment. Prompt 4. The light shatters. Professional 1940s photograph capturing chaos moment. Basement scene with shattered light bulb, glass falling, multiple figures in darkness with muzzle flashes visible, motion blur suggesting sudden violence. Prompt 5. Basement aftermath. Black and white crime scene photograph. Basement interior with overturned furniture. 11 figures on floor in various injury states. Single survivor against wall. Dramatic lighting from doorway above. Prompt 6. Marty's escape. High quality 1940 street photograph. Injured man in torn suit crawling up concrete steps to street level. Morning light breaking through. Blood visible. Desperate expression. Reaching toward taxi. Prompt 7. Dutch's breakfast. Professional black and white interior photograph. Well-dressed businessman. An expensive suit at restaurant table with newspaper and coffee. Shocked expression as injured associate delivers news. Prompt 8. The ace of spades. Close-up black and white photograph. Single playing card ace of spades on polished wooden table. Bloodstains visible. Businessman's hands reaching for card. Dramatic lighting creating shadows. Prompt 9. Dutch's decision. 1940s interior photograph. Business meeting scene with multiple men in suits around table. Central figure burning playing card in ashtray while others watch intently. Smoke rising. Dramatic shadows. Prompt 10. Bumpy's victory. Professional black and white portrait. Bumpy Johnson in immaculate three-piece suit sitting confidently behind desk in well-appointed office. Framed ace of spades visible on wall behind him. Satisfied expression. The war started over territory. Dutch wanted Harlem's numbers racket. It was pure gold. Thousands of nickels and dimes flowing through the neighborhood daily, turning into millions annually. But Harlem already had a king, Madame Stephanie Street Claire, and her enforcer, a quiet man with cold eyes named Bumpy Johnson. When Dutch's men came to negotiate, Madame Street Claire told them to get out. When they threatened her, Bumpy Johnson made 3 of them disappear. Not killed, disappeared. No bodies, no witnesses, no trace. Just gone. That's when Dutch Schultz decided Bumpy Johnson had to die. Not just die, be made an example of. The kind of death that makes everyone else fall in line. Dutch sent his best. Tommy, the executioner, Vento, who'd killed 16 men and never missed. Marty, Icepick Delaney, who could kill with a smile. 10 more killers whose names even the police didn't know. 12 men total. Their plan was simple. Corner Bumpy alone, make him beg, then put him down like a dog. Send Harlem a message about what happens when you disrespect Dutch Schultz. February 14th, 4:30 a.m. The Cotton Club basement, not the famous downtown joint, but the real Cotton Club where Harlem's players came to gamble and settle scores. Dark, isolated, one exit through narrow stairs. Perfect place for an execution. But here's what Dutch's men didn't know. Bumpy Johnson had been expecting them. At 4:32 a.m., Bumpy descended those basement stairs. The room was dark except for one hanging bulb. 12 guns clicked off their safety. Tommy, the executioner, stepped forward, smiling. Dutch sends his regards. Bumpy stood there, hands at his sides, face calm. He looked around slowly, counting. 12 men. He looked back at Tommy. That all he sent? Tommy's smile faded. This wasn't fear. This wasn't begging. This was something else Schultz entirely. "You got 5 seconds to beg," Tommy said, raising his gun. Bumpy tilted his head slightly. "You're making a mistake." "What mistake?" "You're about to be dead." "The mistake," Bumpy said slowly, "is thinking I came here alone." 12 guns stayed trained on him, but now there was hesitation, doubt. Tommy glanced at the stairs. Nothing. "You're bluffing." Bumpy smiled for the first time. "Then shoot." Nobody shot. Because here's what Dutch Schultz's men didn't understand about Bumpy Johnson. He'd been fighting since he was 10 years old. Street fights, prison riots, wars over territory. He'd learned something most men never learn. Violence has a rhythm, and whoever controls the rhythm controls the outcome. Tommy's finger tightened on the trigger. Last chance. Bumpy moved. What happened next defied explanation. The hanging bulb shattered. One precise punch. Complete darkness. Then chaos. The first shots came wild. Panic. Men shooting at shadows. At sound. In that darkness, Bumpy became something else. He knew that room. Had played poker there 100 times. Dutch's men didn't. One by one, you could hear them going down. Not from gunshots. Bumpy didn't waste bullets. He used his hands. Used their confusion. Used the fact that they were shooting each other in the panic. A scream. A body hitting the floor. Another gunshot. Another scream. Tommy tried to rally them. "The stairs! Get to the stairs!" But Bumpy was already there. The violence lasted 3 minutes. 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. When someone finally opened the basement door, let light spill down those steps, here's what they found. 11 bodies. Not all dead, but all down. Broken bones, gunshot wounds from friendly fire, unconscious, bleeding, and one man sitting against the wall hyperventilating, gun still in his shaking hand, Marty Icepick Delaney, the only one still conscious. Bumpy was gone, vanished like smoke. Marty crawled up those stairs. Took him 20 minutes. Every step agony. Broken ribs, maybe worse. He made it to the street as the sun came up. Flagged down a cab with blood-soaked money. "Bronx," he gasped. "Arthur Avenue. Dutch Schultz headquarters. 817A." And Marty stumbled into Dutch's social club. Dutch was eating breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee, reading the newspaper. He looked up, saw Marty covered in blood, and went still. "Where are the others?" Marty couldn't speak at first, just shook his head. "Where are my men?" "Dead," Marty finally whispered. "All of them." "He what?" "He let me live to give you a message." The entire room went quiet. Dutch's lieutenants, accountants, bodyguards, everyone stopped and watched. What message? Marty reached into his jacket. Dutch's men reached for their guns, but Marty pulled out a single playing card, the ace of spades, covered in blood. He placed it on the table. He said to tell you Harlem's not for sale, and if you send more men, send more cards. He's collecting a deck. Dutch Schultz stared at that card for a long time. His men waited for the order to unleash hell, to send 50 men to burn Harlem to the ground. Instead, Dutch picked up the card, studied it, then smiled. Not a happy smile, a resignation smile. He's got balls. I'll give him that. "Boss, we can't let this..." Dutch held up his hand. "You know what it costs to go to war with someone who's not afraid to die? Someone smarter than you? Someone who has an entire neighborhood behind him?" He shook his head. "It costs everything. And for what? Numbers, money. There's easier money." He dropped the card in the ashtray, lit it on fire. "We're done in Harlem. Let Bumpy Johnson have it." The decision shocked everyone. Dutch Schultz, who'd gone to war with Lucky Luciano, who'd killed his own partners, who never backed down. Backed down? Why? Because Bumpy had done something even Dutch respected. Proven he was willing to die for his principle. And men like that, you don't fight them. You either kill them or leave them alone. And Dutch couldn't kill him. But was Bumpy really alone that night? Years later, in the 1970s, a reporter tracked down one of the Cotton Club's old employees. "You want the truth?" The old man smiled. Bumpy wasn't alone. He had 4 guys upstairs the whole time. They locked the basement door from the outside once Dutch's men went down. Trapped them in. Bumpy could have killed all 12 if he wanted, but he let one live on purpose, because Bumpy understood something. Killing Dutch's men would start a war. Humiliating them, that ends it. Whether that's true or legend, nobody knows for sure. What we do know, after that night, Dutch Schultz never sent another man to Harlem. Bumpy Johnson became the undisputed king of Harlem's underworld. For the next 35 years, he protected that neighborhood like it was his own family. Not with indiscriminate violence, with strategy, intelligence, and a code. And that ace of spades, Bumpy kept it, framed it, hung it in his office. A reminder, respect isn't given, it's taken. February 14th, 1933. 12 men walked into a basement. 1 walked out. And Harlem was never the same. The night Bumpy Johnson proved that sometimes the only thing that stops a bully is someone willing to stand up and fight back. Not with words, not with lawyers, but with the absolute refusal to be intimidated. Dutch Schultz learned what every tyrant eventually learns. There's always someone tougher, smarter, and more determined than you. And when you find that person, you have 2 choices. Respect them or face the consequences. Bumpy Johnson gave Dutch that choice. Dutch chose wisely.